the silent plea. The stars above the dead world were cold and uncaring, shining on ruins that once held life. Beneath the broken sky, the people of this forgotten species hid in the cracks of their own cities, their homes now nothing but bones of stone and steel. Once they were proud. Once their voices filled the trade lanes of the galaxy. But now they were only ghosts among ashes. The galaxy had left them to die. No aid ships came, no convoys of food, no armies to protect them. The great empires declared their world lost and moved on, as if a whole species could be erased with a single word. Still they sent messages, weak radio waves that crawled through space, begging for mercy, begging for anyone to listen. For years those signals drifted, ignored, and yet, somewhere across the darkness, in a small human listening station on the edge of space, an operator leaned forward, his eyes wide. Static cleared for only a second, and a voice, weak, cracked with despair, whispered through. "Help us. Please. Anyone." The man froze. He checked the frequency again. He called for his commander. The signal was real, and it came from a system no one had spoken of in decades. A world marked "Forsaken" on every galactic map. Reports rushed through channels. Military officers read them in silence. Politicians stared at the desperate words. It was not just a message. It was a plea from a people abandoned by everyone. At first, many argued. They are forgotten for a reason, some said. If we interfere, the Council will punish us. Humanity is not ready for another war. Others looked at the evidence, starving, children, ruined hospitals, the last survivors of a culture waiting only for death. One human captain could not stay silent. He stood in the middle of the chamber, his voice cutting through the noise. If no one else will stand with them, then humanity must. Silence followed his words, but in that silence something stirred. The old oath of Earth, whispered through generations, the promise that humanity would never look away when others suffered, began to burn again. Meanwhile, on the dying world, survivors crawled out at night to see the stars, their faces thin, their eyes hollow. They asked each other the same question every night. Will anyone come? But no answer came. In one ruined shelter, a small child clutched an old transmitter. She pressed the button again and again, whispering into the void. We are still here. Please, don't forget us. Her voice joined the river of unanswered signals, but this time it reached human ears. Back on Earth, debates grew hotter. Some leaders wanted to ignore it, to erase the message as if it never existed. But the people began to hear. News spread. Voices rose. They were forsaken by the galaxy, a worker said. But that does not mean humanity should forsake them too. A miner in the colonies sent a message. Send my taxes to them, not to more weapons. A teacher told her class, if we call ourselves human, then we must answer. The pressure grew, and slowly the council shifted. The commander of the fleet received new orders. Prepare to move. Prepare to answer the forgotten plea. Engines roared. Steel giants lifted from their docks, the banners of Earth glowed under the sun, and across the ruined world, as the child pressed the transmitter again, the night sky trembled. A streak of light, distant but growing, cut across the heavens. At first they thought it was another bomb, another weapon to finish them, but no, it was something different. Ships, human ships breaking through the dark. Hope flickered in eyes that had long forgotten the word. The forgotten species did not know if this was salvation or just another conqueror, but they lifted their faces to the sky, waiting, trembling, whispering the only words they could. Please, don't leave us again. Humanity hears the cry. The message shook Earth more than anyone expected. At first it was only a faint signal, a broken voice whispering through static, but once the recording was played across human networks, something changed. People stopped what they were doing to listen, the voice of a dying child begging in the dark. Please, don't forget us, echoed in every home. It could not be ignored. The Council of Earth met in haste, generals, ministers, and envoys, sitting in a wide chamber under the old flag of humanity. Screens above them replayed the message. Again and again, some spoke with cold reason. This is not our fight, one said. If we move, the Galactic Council will call it a violation. We risk trade wars, even open conflict. Another voice added, We are strong, but we are still rebuilding. From the last war, can we really afford to take on the galaxy to protect a species already written off as dead? But others could not sit in silence. They are alive, one argued, and if we walk away, then we are no better than the ones who left them behind. The chamber filled with voices, heated, clashing. In the corner, Captain Arik Valen sat. Quietly, his fist clenched. He had seen war before. He had seen colonies burn and people left to rot when help never came. And the memory haunted him still. Finally, when the arguments reached their peak, he stood, his voice cutting through like steel. You all speak of risk, of laws, of trade, but none of you speak of honor, none of you speak of the oath we carry as humans. The room fell into silence. Arik looked at them one by one, his voice rising. If no one else will stand with them, then we must. If the galaxy condemns us, let it condemn us. But when a child cries into the void, humanity does not turn away. For a long moment, no one spoke. But outside the chamber, across Earth and the colonies, the people were already. Choosing crowds gathered, holding banners, chanting, "Answer the call, answer the call." On mining worlds, workers swore they would give a day's pay to fund relief ships in schools. Children raised their voices and recorded their own messages of hope to send to the dying species. It was no longer just politics. It was humanity, itself demanding action. The council could not ignore it. With heavy faces, the final order was given. Mobilize a fleet, send aid, and protect the forgotten. Humanity will stand with them. The decision spread like fire. Across shipyards, engineers raced to load medical supplies, food crates, and shelter modules into human warships. Doctors volunteered, soldiers prepared, and pilots whispered to each other, "We are going not to conquer, but to keep a promise." Yet in the shadows, not everyone was pleased. Hidden envoys of the galactic empires reported the decision back to their masters. The humans moved to break the law of abandonment, they said. They dared to touch what was left to die, and in grand halls light years away, rulers of powerful empires hissed with anger. Arrogant humans, always seeking to play saviors, we will remind them of their place. But the humans did not stop. In the great dock of Sol, Captain Arik stood aboard his ship resolute as engines hummed with power. Beside him, his crew waited, not for orders of conquest, but for something far heavier. An oath. Arik looked at his officers, his voice steady. "We do not know what waits for us out there, but remember this. Humanity has given its word, and our word is stronger than any fleet, stronger than any law. We will not break it." The oath spread from ship to ship, whispered through comms, written on banners, spoken in quiet prayers, and when the fleet finally rose from Earth, breaking through the clouds into the cold stars, people below watched with tears in their eyes. For the first time in history, humanity was not going to fight for itself, but for someone forgotten by all. Suspense hung in the air. Would they arrive in time? Would the galaxy strike them down for defying its silence? The only certainty was this: humanity had chosen. And somewhere on a dying world, a child pressed the transmitter again, not knowing that her voice had already moved an entire species. Arrival in the ashes. The fleet of humanity cut through the black sea of stars, their engines burning like a trail of fire across the void. Dozens of ships carried supplies, doctors, soldiers, and hope itself. But inside every heart was also fear. Fear of what they would find. Fear of how the galaxy would react. For weeks they had followed the faint signal, a whisper in the endless dark, until finally the ruined system came into view. Once it had been a jewel, trade routes passing through, cities glowing on the surface, ships circling in orbit. Now it was a graveyard. Broken stations drifted like bones, shattered hulls turned slowly in silence, satellites cracked and lifeless. The human crew stared through their viewports. No one spoke. The horror of abandonment hung in every shadow. "Scan for survivors," Captain Arik ordered, his voice low. The reports came back, weak life signs scattered across the surface. Small, clusters underground. Deep inside collapsed cities. Numbers so low it made even hardened soldiers feel sick. "Less than 1,000,000, the officer whispered. "From billions, less than 1,000,000 remain." The fleet descended. ships burning through clouds of ash, breaking through storms that had raged without repair for decades. On the surface, survivors looked up at the streaks of light cutting the sky. They trembled. Some screamed in terror. Others fell to their knees, believing the end had finally come. In one broken shelter, a girl pressed her hands against the cracked ceiling, whispering, "They're here. The ones who will finish us." But when the first ship landed, no weapons fired, its doors opened and humans stepped out, not with guns drawn, but with crates of food and water, with medics rushing forward. The forgotten species stared, too weak to move, their bodies thin, their skin pale from years of hiding underground, their eyes hollow but still burning with the last spark of survival. One child crawled forward, too fragile to walk, her voice shaking. "Are you here to end us too?" Captain Arik knelt before her, his armored hands setting down a packet of food, his voice steady but soft. "No, little one. We came because you called. We came because you are not forgotten." The words spread through the crowd like fire, whispers rising, then tears, sobs that had been held back for years. Doctors rushed to treat the wounded. Engineers began setting up shelters. Soldiers lifted beams from collapsed buildings to free the trapped, but still suspicion remained. The elders of the species stepped forward, their voices sharp. "Why?" one demanded. "Why now? When the galaxy abandoned us, where were you? What do you want from us now?" Arik met their eyes, not flinching. "We want nothing, only this, to keep the oath of our people. We do not abandon those who cry for help." Some believed, some did not. But the truth was clear. Humanity had done what no other empire dared. They had come far above in the void. Other eyes watched. Hidden ships of rival empires cloaked in shadow, recording every moment, sending it back to the Galactic Council. "The humans land," a voice reported. "They break the ancient law of abandonment. They give life where only death was permitted. They must be punished." Back on the surface as night fell, survivors huddled near human camps, eating their first real meals in years, drinking clean water, feeling the warmth of heaters. For the first time since childhood, children laughed, weak but alive, and in the distance, songs of thanks began to rise. But Captain Arik stood apart, his eyes fixed on the sky. He knew the moment of hope was fragile. He knew enemies would come, and soon. For now, though, he let himself hear the laughter. For now he let himself believe in the oath, yet deep inside a question lingered. Would humanity's promise be enough when the wrath of the galaxy arrived? The oath remembered. The night on the ruined world was silent, broken only by the hum of human generators and the crackle of fires lit for warmth. For the first time in years, the forgotten species slept without hunger gnawing at their bones, without fear of dying in the dark. But Captain Arik did not sleep. He stood in the half-broken plaza of their capital, watching as survivors gathered, drawn by the glow of lights. The people looked at the humans with wide, uncertain eyes, some filled with gratitude, some with suspicion, all with fear of being abandoned again. The elders stepped forward, their thin frames wrapped in rags. One raised his voice, sharp and weary. "You bring food, you bring fire, you bring hope. But we have seen this before. Empires once came promising salvation, and when the cost grew heavy, they left us to rot. Why are you different?" Arik's answer came not with a smile, but with steady conviction. "Because humanity remembers its oath," he said, his voice carrying through the ruins. "What oath?" a young man shouted bitterly. "What can words do against a galaxy that wished us dead?" Arik looked around at his soldiers, his doctors, his engineers, all standing silently behind him, all waiting for his words. "It is an oath as old as earth," he said, "a promise carried in every heart, that when someone cries for help, we will not look away no matter the cost." The crowd murmured, the words simple but heavy. To prove it was more than speech, Arik knelt, taking the hand of a starving child. Lifting her into his arms, he raised his head toward the stars, his voice like thunder. "Before the galaxy, before my people, I swear this. Humanity will not abandon you. You are not forgotten. You will not be alone again." The words echoed across the plaza, carried by transmitters, recorded by human ships, broadcast into the void around him. His soldiers repeated the oath, voices rising together. "We stand with you. We will not abandon you." The forgotten species wept, some falling to their knees, others raising their hands to the sky as if to grasp the words themselves. Children clung to human medics. Elders whispered blessings. For the first time, hope felt real. But far above, in the dark of space, hidden eyes watched. Cloaked probes belonging to rival empires captured the entire moment, sending it back to the Galactic Council. Inside the grand halls of the Council, where empires gathered in shining robes and jeweled crowns, the reaction was immediate. "The humans have broken the law of abandonment," one voice hissed. "They disturb the balance. They give life where only silence was decreed." Another slammed a clawed hand on the table. "Do they think themselves saviors? Do they think they are gods to decide who lives?" The Council voted swiftly, their judgment cruel. Humanity must be warned. If they continue this path, they will face embargo, punishment, war. Back on the ruined world, the humans worked without pause. Shelters rose from the ground, powered by human tech. Fields were seeded again. Clean water flowed. The forgotten species began to stand straighter, their voices no longer whispers of despair, but murmurs of gratitude. At night, they sang songs. Of old, their voices weak but rising with strength they thought lost forever. One elder came to Arik, placing a hand on his chest. "Our ancestors believed we were cursed, that no one would ever hear us again. But tonight I think perhaps the curse is broken." Arik said nothing, but his eyes lifted to the stars, where he knew danger gathered. The oath was made, the promise spoken, and the galaxy would not forgive. In the distance, a warning alarm sounded aboard the Resolute, signals of approaching ships unknown, watching, waiting. The forgotten had hope again. But Arik felt the storm pressing closer with every passing hour, the Council's fury. The forgotten world was only just beginning to breathe again. Fields were seeded, water tanks filled, shelters built. But as joy slowly returned, shadows stretched long across the stars. In the halls of the Galactic Council, voices rose in anger. Screens showed images of human ships delivering aid, doctors tending the sick, soldiers lifting beams from ruins. To the Council, it was not compassion, it was rebellion. "The humans defy us," hissed a scaled delegate, his tongue flicking in rage. "They dare to revive a species marked for silence." A tall, feathered envoy slammed her wings against the table, her voice sharp. "If one empire breaks the law of abandonment, then all will, and the galaxy will drown in endless wars. This cannot be allowed." The Council's leader raised a jeweled hand, silencing them all. Then humanity must be reminded of its place. With a wave, the decision was made. An ultimatum was drafted, a message carried on encrypted channels and hurled through space toward Earth. It reached the human fleet first, the screen on the Resolute flashing with the crest of the Galactic Council. Captain Arik stood before it as the message played. "Humans of Earth, you have violated the ancient law. You have revived those meant to be forgotten. This is your only warning. Withdraw your forces, abandon the forsaken species, or face embargo, isolation, and war against all who stand with us." The message ended, silence filling the command deck. Officers shifted uneasily, their eyes on Arik, their faces pale. They knew what disobeying the Council meant. It meant every major empire united against them. One officer whispered, "If we stand against them, we may not survive." Another added, "Perhaps we should pull back. We've done enough to give them a chance." But Arik's face was stone, his voice steady as iron. "No," he said. "We made an oath. Humanity does not make promises to break them." He turned to the comms. "Officer, patch me through not only to the Council but to every channel, every world that can hear us." The officer hesitated, then obeyed. The screen lit, broadcasting across systems, into markets, onto colony stations, into the homes of billions. Arik stood tall, his armor bearing the flag of Earth, his voice carrying across the galaxy. "You call it law, we call it cowardice. You abandoned the weak, left them to starve and die, and you told yourselves it was order." He paused, letting the silence sting. Humanity will not obey such law. Humanity will not abandon the forgotten if standing with them makes us criminals. Then we are. Guilty if it makes us outcasts, then so be it, we will carry that weight. His eyes burned, his voice thundered. You threaten us with war. Then come. You will not find us on our knees. You will find us standing. Between the helpless and your wrath we will not move, we will not bow, we will not abandon our oath. The speech swept across the galaxy like fire, on distant colonies. Beings whispered in shock. Humans defy the council openly, one said. No one has dared such a thing in centuries. In markets some cheered, others shook in fear, and on the forgotten world, survivors wept, their hearts swelling with a strength they had thought lost forever. They repeated the words to one another like prayer, "We will not abandon our oath." But in the council chamber, fury erupted, war. Voices cried, "Strike them down before others follow their madness." Fleet commanders were dispatched, orders written, dreadnoughts fueled. The galaxy began to turn its weapons toward humanity. Back on the Resolute, Arik stood with his officers, his expression unshaken. "They will come," one whispered. "They will come with everything they have." Arik nodded slowly. "Then we will meet them with everything we are." Outside the viewport, the forgotten world spun below, fragile yet alive again. And in the distance, sensors already caught the faint shadows of fire among the stars. The first enemy ships appeared like shadows on the scanners, their massive signatures burning red across human screens. On the bridge of the Resolute, Captain Arik stood tall, his officers tense, every eye locked on the growing. "Storm ahead. They come," the sensor officer whispered. "Council fleets, multiple factions united, numbers. Too many." Arik's jaw tightened. "Then we stand as promised." The forgotten world below lay silent, unaware of the full danger. Children slept in new shelters. Families ate real meals for the first time in years. And above them, humanity, prepared to fight for their right to keep living. The council fleet broke through the void, dreadnoughts with armor thick as mountains, cruisers glowing with energy weapons, carriers spilling waves of fighters like swarms of steel insects. Human ships formed a shield wall before the planet, their lines smaller, thinner but unbroken. A council voice came over the comms, sharp as a blade. "Last warning, humanity. Stand down. Leave the Forsaken to their fate, or you will be destroyed." Arik did not answer with words but with action. "Raise shields, charge weapons, protect the planet." The first strike came like thunder, beams of plasma cutting through the void, explosions blooming across the black. Human ships trembled under the assault, shields flashing, metal groaning, but they did not break. "Return fire," Arik commanded. Railguns roared, missiles streaked, fighters launched from bays, humanity's fleet answering with fire of their own. The battle lit the heavens, stars drowned in the blaze of war. One human frigate dove straight into a swarm of enemy fighters, its cannon spitting fire until it was torn apart. The last transmission echoing across comms. For Earth, for the forgotten, another ship rammed an enemy cruiser, tearing through its hull in a blaze of sacrifice, buying precious seconds for the fleet. Yet still the council pressed forward, their numbers endless. On the surface, the forgotten species looked up at the sky, streaks of fire cutting through the night, the ground shaking with distant thunder. "Will they hold?" One elder whispered, his hands trembling. "Will they die for us?" In the command tent below, human officers coordinated evacuation drills, preparing in case the defense line failed. But above, Captain Arik's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold the line! No ship breaks formation, no one flees. Every second, we stand, they live." The enemy dreadnought moved closer, a beast of steel dwarfing the human fleet, its cannons glowing with deadly light. "Target lock on the colony," the sensor officer cried. "They mean to burn the survivors." The bridge fell silent for a breath. Then Arik gave the order. "All ships, intercept, even if it costs everything." Human vessels surged forward, small against the giant, unleashing every missile, every shell, every ounce of fire they carried. The dreadnought trembled but did not fall. Its main weapon charged, light building at its core. On the surface, children screamed as the sky glowed brighter. Arik gritted his teeth, sweat on his brow. "Redirect all power to the main railguns. Fire. Everything. The Resolute shook as its cannons roared, the shot ripping into the dreadnought's glowing core. For a moment, silence then. The beast erupted, flames tearing through its hull, shards of steel scattering across the void like burning stars. The planet shook with the echo, survivors staring at the sky in awe. They destroyed it, one whispered, tears in his eyes. But even as the dreadnought died, more council ships poured through the void, endless waves. On the bridge, the tactical officer whispered, "Captain, we can't hold forever." Arek's voice remained steady. "Then we hold as long as we must, as long as it takes, because humanity gave its oath." Human ships burned one after another, each loss carving into the hearts of the living. But not one turned away. Not one abandoned the line. Above the forgotten world, the war raged like fire among the stars, and deep within, everyone knew. The true storm was still coming. The oath fulfilled. The battle burned on through the endless. Night human ships fought until their hulls split apart, until their weapons glowed red from overuse, until even silence felt like it screamed. For every council cruiser destroyed, 3 more appeared. For every wave of fighters broken, another swarm rose. On the bridge of the Resolute, alarms blared, sparks rained from the ceiling. Officers worked, with bleeding hands refusing to stop. "Shields at 20%, one cried, "weapons almost empty," another shouted. Still, Captain Arik stood firm, his eyes locked on the planet below. The forgotten world, fragile but alive. "Hold," he whispered. "We promised them." Outside, the council fleet prepared its final strike, ships aligning. Into formation, their combined firepower enough to erase the human defense and the colony in one blow. The message went across human comms, cruel and cold. "This is the end, humanity. Your defiance dies here, your oath dies with you. But humanity?" Did not answer with fear. On every ship, voices rose. Soldiers, medics, engineers, pilots whispering or shouting the same words, "We will not abandon them." The Resolute shook as its engines roared, pushing forward against the tide, its battered hull leading what remained of the fleet. "Captain," the officer cried, "if we push now, we won't come back." Arek's voice was steady, calm like steel. "Then we will not come back. But they will live." The human fleet surged together, broken ships forming one last wall. They threw themselves into the enemy line, missiles launched in desperate waves, railguns roaring, even crippled ships ramming into council vessels with suicidal force. The stars themselves seemed to burn, the sky filled with fire. On the ground, the forgotten species watched in horror and awe, tears running down their faces. "Why? Do they fight for us?" one elder whispered. "Why do they give their lives for those the galaxy despised?" A human medic kneeling beside him answered softly, "Because we swore an oath and humanity does not break its word." Above, the battle reached its breaking point. The Resolute was torn open, fire rushing through its decks, alarms screaming. But still it flew, driving straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Arik stood tall on the bridge, his final order clear. "Transmit this across all channels. Let the galaxy hear us." The comms officer, coughing blood, nodded and sent. The signal Arik's voice carried across the stars, his final words a fire that could not be silenced. "Humanity stands with the forgotten. Today, tomorrow, forever. If you burn us, then know this. Our oath will live on, our children will rise, and the galaxy will remember humanity never abandons its own." With that, the Resolute rammed the Yasu, lead council battleship, its reactor detonating in a blinding explosion that ripped through the enemy line. The shockwave sent council ships spinning, tearing through formations, giving the remaining human vessels a chance to strike one last time. The void went silent, smoke and wreckage drifting where fleets once clashed. Human losses were unbearable, but the council's attack had broken, and for the first time the galaxy hesitated. On the forgotten world, survivors wept as the skies cleared, the fires fading, leaving behind stars and silence. They gathered in the plaza, standing beside the surviving humans, and for the first time their voices rose together. "We live, because humanity remembered us." Word spread like wildfire, not just across their world, but across the galaxy. Other species heard the story. of how humanity defied the council, how they bled and died to protect those no one else would, how their oath stood stronger than fleets. Whispers grew into legend. They may be young, they may be small, but never turn your back on humanity, for they never turn theirs on you. On Earth, mourning bells rang for the ships that never returned, names written in halls of stone, but pride filled every heart. They had stood, and they had not broken their word. And in the quiet of the galaxy, the oath lived on. Humanity had fulfilled it with fire, with sacrifice, with blood and steel. The forgotten species would never be forgotten again. And every empire, every ruler, every council member who once laughed at Earth now spoke in silence, knowing the truth. Humanity had become something the galaxy could not erase. Not conquerors, not victims, guardians. The oath was fulfilled, and it would echo forever.